Hello and welcome. My name's Simon from CramTheExam, and in today's video we're going to have a look at a CAE Advanced Part 5 reading question. Reading question part of the use of English paper. This is the first reading question out of the 4 that you'll have to do. This exercise comes from the excellent website engexam.info. It is full of CAE and IELTS resources, exams, listening practices, everything in that exam. I really can't recommend it enough. You can spend hours and hours and hours of your preparation for your CAE or Matura Advanced on this website. So if you haven't checked it out, make sure you check it out after this video. The links to this exercise and to the website you'll find in the video description below. So just a few quick reminders about part 5. You've got 6 questions to answer. It's multiple choice, A, B, C or D. You're looking to spend around about 16 to 17 minutes on this, although in an ideal world you'll want to get this down to as low as you possibly can, or as short as you possibly can. So if you can do this in around about 12-13 minutes, which I know is a big ask, you're giving yourself a lot of time for the other reading questions or for the use of English questions if you have some problems with those. But at the beginning, the target that you're looking for is around about 16 to 17 minutes. As always, you're looking for vocabulary links and you're looking for contextual links to explain why the answer is the answer, and that's exactly what I'm going to do in this video, explain why the answer is the answer. So let's get started. For question 31, the first question of this paper, the reviewer's main topic in the first paragraph is, okay, so let's go straight into it. The title is The Great Indoors at Home in Modern British House. Now, the answer to this is a change in the attitudes to home decorating. You should see that highlighted above my head. So we're looking for vocabulary that connects, or an idea or a context that connects to a change in attitudes to home decorating. And we can see that because in the beginning of the paragraph it talks about how in 1910 working at home, do it yourself, was something that people laughed at. 50 years later, the comedians were still doing the same gag. But there's a contrast here. The joke was starting to look dated. In other words, the joke was starting to look old-fashioned. Why was it starting to look old-fashioned? It's because of successes such as magazines and the general attitude of people that says do-it-yourself is a home hobby that is here to stay. So the idea is in 1910s, not many people were doing it, and it was funny when things went wrong. By the time you get to 1957, everyone was well accustomed to the idea of do-it-yourself or doing work at home. So this signifies a contextually signifies a change in attitudes to home decorating or do-it-yourself. Now, of course, there is vocabulary which links to these 3 answers, but either that vocabulary is a very, very short mention and it's not the general context of this paragraph, or that it's leading you down a different path. So the answer for number 1 is D. The question for number 2 is helpful because whenever you get, or at least I find it to be helpful, because whenever you get indicators, signposts like this, then it helps concentrate your attention on specific areas of the text. So if it didn't say in the second paragraph, you would have to consider the wider text. But here it says specifically in the second paragraph. So straight away, you might be able to save yourself some time by just going straight to the second paragraph and focusing on whichever part you need to focus on. The reviewer says that the book includes evidence illustrating that some British people's homes were transformed more than others, the widespread nature of changes that took place in British homes, this is the correct answer, the perceived disadvantages of certain developments in British homes, that the roles of certain people in British homes changed enormously. So why is this the correct answer? Well, let's have a look. The paragraph starts off by saying that Britain had completed. Oh, I'm moving the screen. Britain had completed its transition, so its change from primitive housing into a world where families looked after themselves in highly serviced environments. So that first sentence creates a contrast that we're moving from this and now we're in a completely different situation. So that in itself suggests the widespread nature of changes. It's not just a small change, because primitive housing to highly serviced environments is a big change. It's not a small change. That relates to widespread nature of changes. And of course, what follows then is the development of how this happened and the things that are used and so on, so on. And it goes into a little bit more discussion. But the answer that the text that gives us our answer is rather this comparison of times that suggests a big change. Question number 3 is also very helpful because it says in the third paragraph. So let's get there into the third paragraph. The reviewer points to a change in the extent to which different parts of the house are occupied, ideas of which parts a house should be furnished in a formal way, how much time children should spend in their rooms, belief about what the most pleasant aspect of home life is. Now, of course, the paragraph 3 touches on all of those things, but the answer is the extent to which different parts of the house are occupied or used. And we can see that. The paragraph begins, at its centre, though, is the way our homes have reflected wider social changes, and there's no help there. There is the decline of formality, so that living rooms once full of heavy furniture and Victoria knickknacks, souvenirs, things, are now dominated by TV screens and littered with children's toys. So there is a discussion about how furniture changes. So you might be thinking, okay, or furnishing. So you might be thinking that it's the second answer, B. But is there, and you can argue that, okay, if going from heavy furniture to television screens and children's toys might talk about formality. Okay. There is a growing internationalism in taste, and there is the rise of domestic democracy, with the household radiogram and telephone located in the hall, now replaced by iPads, laptops, and mobiles in virtually every room. So the idea, and then that idea is developed. The key to that decentralization of the home and the shift of power within it is the advent of central heating. So what this is saying is, once upon a time, everyone was in one place, and now, because of central heating, everyone can go everywhere in the house because it's warmer in other parts of the house. The idea was in other parts of the house it was colder, and that leads us to this answer here: how much time children spent in their rooms. Children only went to their rooms as a punishment because it was cold in that room. And this paragraph also mentions that as the innovation that allowed the whole house to become accessible at all times of day and night. So I want you to compare this sentence, which refers to furniture and arguably formality, to this larger amount of information which talks about the extent to which different parts of the house are occupied. So you can just see that the amount of conversation about one sentence is bigger or outweighs the conversation about another answer, which is why the answer is this answer here and not this answer here. For question number 4, let's move everything into the right place. The reviewer suggests in the 4th paragraph that most unsuccessful inventions failed because they were dangerous. Various unsuccessful inventions failed because they did not work properly. Some unsuccessful inventions were not advertised appropriately. They were unsuccessful inventions which might have been good ideas. Now, this is a tricky question. And the reason why it's a tricky question is because this is the text that we have to work with, which is not much text. So let's go through it. Highmore also documents, however, some less successful steps in the onward march of domestic machinery. So less successful means unsuccessful, and all of these answers refer to something which is unsuccessful. So this sentence doesn't help us much. Whatever happens to the gas-powered fridges we were promised in 1946, or to the dishmaster a decade later that promised to do a whole day's washing up in just 3 minutes? Now, the idea behind this sentence, and particularly the way the question is opened, whatever happened. This suggests, it gives you the idea that the author, or Highmore, suggests that this is something that's good and it didn't happen. Whatever happened to? It's as if you were waiting for something to happen and it didn't actually happen. And that points us towards D, which is our correct answer, which might have been good ideas. And it's this might have been good ideas which links to this opening, whatever happened to. I know what you're thinking, yes, and I agree with you. It's a bit of a tenuous link. Yes, I hear what you're saying, but let's go through this the other way and let's deal with this through a process of elimination. So, rather more clear is the reason why a 1902 Teasmade failed to catch on. When the alarm clock triggered the switch, a match was struck, lighting a spirit stove under the kettle. And then it says, you don't have to be a health and safety fanatic to conclude that the bedroom isn't the ideal place for such a gadget. That's it. That's all of the vocabulary that we've got to work with. So, most unsuccessful inventions failed because they were dangerous. This is not the correct answer because there was nothing in the text that said most. There was just one example of one thing that was unsafe. So it's not the correct answer. Various unsuccessful inventions failed because they did not work properly. There's nothing in the text about various, which suggests a lot of or a different number of, and there's nothing that says that there's nothing in the text that suggests that thing did not work properly. So this isn't the answer. Some unsuccessful inventions were not advertised appropriately. There's nothing in the text about advertising. So through process of elimination, we can remove 3 answers because the text simply doesn't refer to it, which also points towards D being the correct answer, plus that arguably tenuous vocabulary link. For question 5 or 35 on this page, it says, in the 5th paragraph, the reviewer says that in his book, Highmore occasionally applies the standards of today to practices in the past. Right, the key bit of text that we've got to look for is what Highmore said. By the 1980s, Highmore writes, it would be impossible for anyone to imagine their front room as a parlour without seeming deeply old-fashioned. What have we got here? What Highmore is doing here is connecting attitudes in time, or how people thought of things in time. So what happened in the past, or what people thought in the past, if they think in that same way now, this would be seen as old-fashioned. So you're connecting a time in the past to things that are happening now. That's what the quote says. And the only answer that connects time periods together, the past to now, is explicitly is this one here. Occasionally applies the standards of today to practices in the past. So in other words, the standard of today, in other words, is not calling the room the parlour. The practice in the past is calling the room the parlour. Are there any other answers which connect time periods? Nope. It talks about the past, but it doesn't connect to now, so it's not that one. Occasionally expresses regret about how some attitudes have changed. Now, you might say attitudes changing refers to time, and you could be right. I would argue it, but you could be right. But unfortunately, there's nothing that says in Highmore's quote that expresses regret. So it's not that one. Sometimes includes topics that are not directly relevant to the main topic. Well, I can't see any connection at all there. So that's why the answer is B. Now, for 36, in the final paragraph, the reviewer suggests that Highmore may be wrong about. Okay, now, if you remember in the text, it says, the author of this article says he's not entirely correct. So straight away, that's the right bit that we're looking for. He's not entirely correct. So we've got to now focus on this part of the text. He's not entirely... Highmore may be wrong about when certain modern attitudes to home life first developed, which changes in home life in Britain have been the most widely welcomed, the extent to which home life in Britain has changed, how common terms such as airing cupboards are in modern Britain. So Highmore says that what people thought in the past, if people think that they are old-fashioned, and then the author of the article says he's not correct, which connects to our question. And then he gives you an example of Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, who talked about her parlour. And then the author goes on to explain, which suggests she understood the truth, the author's opinion. Despite the catalogue of changes, there is a core that seems consistent. In other words, whilst Highmore is saying that people's attitudes have changed and you might be seen as old-fashioned, the author seems to be suggesting that there is a core belief, or there's a core thinking that has stayed the same, that hasn't dated, that hasn't been turned into something which is old-fashioned. And then you get that example at the end of the discussion about 1946 edition of Housewife. And then the final rhetorical question, has the family dynamic really moved a great deal? Backing up his idea that ideas really haven't changed that much. And that is why the answer is C. Okay, there we go. That's why I think the answers are the answers. Now, the great thing about this website is that if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, and if you click on, in this case, slide number 9, you will see all of the answers to all of the exercises and a very brief explanation as to why. Now, I haven't read these explanations as to why, so I've given you what I think. You can read what the website thinks. In any case, if you disagree with anything that I said, or indeed anything that the website said, get in contact. Write a comment in the comment section below and I will get back to you. I love having the discussion with people who think different things than me. It's all part of the learning experience. If you've got any questions about vocabulary or anything like that, once again, just comment below in the comment section and I will get back to you. Okay, thank you very much for watching this video, and please remember, if you're studying from any CAE textbook or FCE textbook for your Cambridge exam, check out my website CramTheExam.com. I might be able to help you out with that. See you soon.